Welcome to the Deepak Saini Show.
Welcome to the Deepak Saini Show. I'd like to thank J23 for the intro music. You can find a link to her music in the show description. So today in this solo sode, I want to talk a little bit about my, let's call it, body composition journey over time and kind of what I'm up to now. Because I know a lot of you wonder about this, struggle with this. There's a lot of stuff out in, social media, influencers, whatever. Not saying that any of that's bad. I'm just sharing what I'm doing and what I have done. So some of you know my story, some of you don't. So let me just backtrack just a tiny little bit here. So I was always the chubby kid. I can't remember a time when I wasn't. At 18 years old, 17, 18 years old, I was well over 100 pounds heavier than I'm now. I would have been classified as morbidly obese at 17, 18 years old. I tried all sorts of things. Actually, let me take a step back. I gained that 100 pounds from grade 9 to grade 12. So in those 4-year periods when I really started taking playing football seriously, I just put on 100 pounds. I just got really big for the position. I played offensive line. Now, did I gain muscle mass? Of course, I was still growing. I was, having to train. I didn't do a ton of strength training back then. Coach wanted us really to, but I just did the bare minimum to get him off my back. I didn't really like strength training. So it was actually a lot of fat. I actually just got like fat. Obviously, I was morbidly obese. I tried everything through, kind of university, all the sort of yo-yo dieting. I would just go like, I didn't even know what I was doing. I tried all these dangerous supplements, chemicals, really, and I've talked about those before in past, to try and lose weight in the summer and cut down. I'd do funky diets, didn't even know what they were called. I guess they've been kind of low carb or high protein, low carb diet, these type of things in the summer, when I was working during the summer, and I'd lose like 20 or 25 pounds, but then fall would come, I'd go back to class and I put that all back on, or maybe even then some. So I'd have this roller coaster for, about a 4 or 5 year period there. I'd like pretty solidly lose 20 to 25 pounds during the summer and put it all back by Christmas time. And many of you can probably relate to that, if not for yourself, people in your life. Then I got, me and my wife got married, and then, so we were going to get married, or we're about to get married. So we like, let's really look good for our wedding photo. So we both essentially, more so me than her, but really just went on essentially a crash diet, like just really cutting the calories, really just starvation diet actually. And yeah, lost about 20 pounds, and wedding photos like looked a lot better than how I had been. But if I look back to my wedding photos, from how I am now to then, well, man, I was still pretty heavy. I was still pretty fat, but compared to where I was, it was quite a difference. But of course, a year after our wedding, everything, all that weight just came back. Then I started doing, got into running and doing, chronic cardio, where I just be like, and I was doing cardio, before that, 20 minutes here, 45 minutes, whatever, etc., strength training, all that sort of thing. It wasn't actually until university that I really got into strength training. And I know I'm jumping around here a little bit here, but got really, really strong. I could push a lot of weight in university. Me and my friends, we've been essentially trained like power lifters, but I was still heavy. I was just a really strong, obese person still in university. Not at my heaviest, but almost. Still, 250, 260, easy. Probably gotten to about the 230 range, 240 maybe, for that weight loss for the wedding. And then I started doing the chronic cardio, and I got down to about 220 doing all that. But all that pounding the pavement, doing 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, training for marathons, etc., is what actually led to my back injury, which I've talked about many times before. And it was overcoming, or in the attempt to overcome my back injury and make those lifestyle, as well as doing PRP, platelet-rich plasma treatments, to actually treat my back, and making lifestyle changes that actually made me lose all the weight. And I got down to about 170. So again, sort of whittled it down to about 220, 210 or so, hurt my back, put a little bit of weight back on because I couldn't like move, couldn't do any activity. And then as I started to heal my back and make those lifestyle changes, which I've talked about before, got down to about 270. Sorry, 170. And here's the interesting thing. When I started playing football in grade 9, grade 8 actually, and then started putting on weight for football, and I remember this because we had to weigh in, because back in junior high at the time, you could only be a certain weight. You couldn't be too heavy, otherwise because at that age there's such a discrepancy between kids. Some kids are like not even 100 pounds, so there actually was a weight limit. So I had to like make weight in grade 8 and grade 9 to play football. So I know exactly how much I weighed, still to this day, ingrained in my brain. So it was about 170. So again, after all these 20, 30 years later, 5 years later, my weight, my equilibrium weight, 170, is about the same as where I was when I started playing football when I was, 15 years old or 14 years old. That's my body's sort of set point. Now my body comp changed, of course, right? But that I find that very interesting, that my set point was kind of the same weight from there. Now, and it's fluctuated plus or minus 5 pounds from that. Again, that was about after my healing journey. I hurt my back in 2014. My healing journey started in 15. So it's around 2016 or so. So, 10 years ago. And pretty much relatively plus or minus maintained that weight after I lost it all. So going back now, so about 2 years ago, approximately, I decided that I was going to purposely and very intentionally try and put on more lean muscle mass. So that occurred so my thought process around that was being very intentional with how I trained and putting more intention into my strength training. I'm not going back to what I did in university, not powerlifting or anything like that. Again, I'm older. I have some, previous injuries. I got shoulder stuff from way back when. Of course, my back, I always have to be careful with, even though I have no mobility issues now, I still have to be careful with my back. And I have a very robust stretching routine and mobility routine, et cetera, I've talked about before, but it's very intentional within the construct of being now in mid 40s. So how I trained, and then also being very intentional with nutrition to a degree, maintaining that, but also with my supplementation. So doing amino acids, essential amino acids, I want to be clear, essential amino acids, including those in on my workout days, collagen, just another way to get protein in, great, all the benefits for skin, hair, nails, et cetera. That's all a bonus, but really for me about getting intentional and extra 10, maybe sometimes 20 grams of protein or amino acids in by supplementing with collagen as well. So in that roughly two-year period, I put on 10 pounds. So now I'm in kind of the 180 range, sort of. And of that 10 pounds I put on, 6.6 pounds, so 2/3 of it, was lean muscle mass. Yay, that's awesome. That was my goal. But unintended consequence, where do you think that other 3 some odd pounds came? What was composition? So, there's a little bit maybe bone density, our fluids in our bodies don't really change, maybe a little bit for hydration at the time of testing, but essentially I put on 3 pounds of fat in that period, which was an unintended consequence. I've talked about that before in social media posts. Okay, interesting. Need to sort of tweak that. So this was July of 2024 when I did this test. So again, approximately 18 months, 2 years after I intentionally started doing this. So I was like, okay, cool. And I had some reasonings or had some thoughts around why I had put on that fat mass. There's a couple things. One, I'm what we call a hard gainer. So I do need a lot of carbs on to put on any sort of muscle. And, while I'm eating the broccoli and salads and all that sort of thing, I had gotten into this pattern of, having a lot of these mocktails. So I don't drink a lot of alcohol, I occasionally, but, I'd have, like a sparkling water, and even cut it with a soda, some lime juice, whatever, make all these sort of mocktails. And you're just adding a bunch of calories, even though it's not a ton, 50 calories here, 30 calories there, et cetera, et cetera. It all builds up. That was kind of my thinking process of how this extra sort of fat mass came on. So that was July of 2024. And again, I'm using body impedance testing to test these results. That's how I know it's like 6.6 exactly and 3 pounds and exactly the weight. This is the metrics, the tool that I'm using to test. So just recently, the time of recording, just a few days ago of recording in May of 2025, I redid. So not quite a year, I redid my test. And here's the interesting thing. From July of 24, thinking, okay, geez, this is weird. I'm happy I put on this lean muscle mass, kind of curious about this fat that I added on. How can I work on this, etc. A lot of things going on in personal life, certainly a lot of things going on in my professional life with my business. So from July into the fall, leading into the holiday season, Thanksgiving, Christmas, etc., I found myself kind of actually being consciously aware that I was, we're having family movie night. We're staying a little bit up later. So not only sleep being affected, but, the family's having, popcorn. We're watching a movie or a TV show, later at night. I don't particularly care for popcorn, so I'm reaching for like dark chocolate or like some sort of keto treat type of thing. But it's just eating so much later than I normally would, and kind of got into this pattern of this. And then and then leading up to in-person event that I just held here in May of 2025. First one went fantastic, by the way. A lot of stress, hosting an event. There's a lot, you're dealing with, the venue and catering and marketing and getting people to, sign up for the event and show up for the event and all these type of things that, people can imagine, making sure the exercises, the activities during the event, all these type of things. So a ton of stress the last few months. And honestly, I thought I was, I didn't weigh myself. I'm not someone who weighs myself every day or week or anything. I mean, I used to. I don't really think that's. I could just have more kind of about how I feel, and you can sort of do the visual check, in the mirror too, when you're like, brushing your teeth, jumping in the shower. Like, how do the abs look? How does the body look? But also more like a feeling. How do you feel? And I honestly thought I was like, I think I put on weight, and I'm just in this bit of a cycle, and it's just a busy time, and it's very stressful, et cetera. So a lot of stress going on, extra stress leading up to hosting the event, eating late, probably overdoing some of those treats, during the holiday season, and then, family movie night, et cetera. But I got my results again just a few days ago, and I was actually down 3 pounds. And the body comp was like essentially those 3 pounds of fat. I was down 4 pounds. The 3 pounds of fat I had lost, and I lost a pound of lean muscle mass. And I was like, huh, that is interesting. My perception was that I had actually probably put on weight and probably changed my body composition, probably put on a little bit of fat. Again, it's over the holidays, over the winter, I live here up in Canada, it's cold, put on some, weight for the winter, treats, all these sort of things. Like, huh, that's really interesting. So here's my take on what likely happened. Now, obviously, stress can put on weight, but also can, deteriorate our lean muscle mass, which, I did lose a pound. So maybe there's a stress component of that. But really, the other piece I need to mention is, so I did the test in July 2024. And then in October of 2024, a couple months later, I just did, it was just time for it. I did a whole bunch of testing again. All the tests that I include in my Vitality Unleashed program. So I didn't do DNA tests. I did metabolites test, biological age, microbiome test again. So what came from that, and the metabolites test, that was the first time I had done that. It's again relatively new technology. And it's just recently to the consumer level, just in the last 18 months, 2 years. So first time I had done the test. And again, if you're interested in any of these tests or my Vitality Unleashed program, We'll have my contact information, links, etc., in the show notes. So what came from that, again, there were some nutrient deficiencies, there were some neurotransmitter deficiencies. I've talked about some of these before in previous podcasts. But the two changes I did make, so again, I wasn't already drinking a ton of alcohol here and there in special occasions, but I actually even made the conscious effort to actually do less, even drink less in some of those situations, albeit rare, where I might have had a glass of wine or two. Just like, yeah, I'm just gonna have a soda. And even those mocktails, just even cut some of that back a little bit. And just like, no, I'm just literally having like soda water with maybe splash of lime or something like that. So that was one thing. And the another thing that came again, and why was that? So I already wasn't drinking a ton, but my liver markers from doing my metabolites test showed that was a weak spot for me. It's like, oh, actually need more liver support. So, that means adding some supplements like milk thistle, etc., but also bringing alcohol down a little bit, and actually even cutting my caffeine a little bit as well. Not a ton. I still love my coffee, but bringing that down a little bit as well, probably by 25%, and reducing alcohol even more. And the other thing was actually processed meats, cutting that down. So not completely eliminated, but like bacon, sausages, cold cuts, I've greatly reduced that as well during that period. So between maybe the tiny bit effect of like just a bit of extra stress, but I think actually cutting alcohol a little bit down and the processed meats, cold cuts, bacon, sausages, hot dogs, not that I really ever ate hot dogs, but those kind of things, cutting that down a bit, I think is what I'm attributing to actually losing a bit of weight during that period from July 24 to May of 2025, and being it basically all fat, losing all fat. So yay, great, awesome. Now this got me curious. Okay. And I'm always influenced, I'm watching other influencers on there. I'm reading, I'm doing a ton of research, etc. And got me thinking about like, what could be the next experiment, right? I'm a biohacker. I'm a self-experimenter. I'm a self-optimization guy. What's the next experiment I can do? Before I go on, I should actually backtrack. During last summer, so summer of 2024, right, when I had this test done, the last test and et cetera, and really trying to put on lean muscle mass in that 18-month to 2-year period prior, I have to say that some of my strength training, some of my lifts, I actually matched or exceeded what I did way back when I was in university, when I was in my 20s. So squats, I can match my squats now in my late 40s now than I did when I was in my 20s. And bench press, I can't do as much. Again, shoulder is some little shoulder lingering things, but I'm also a lot lighter. So on a pound for pound basis, my bench press and my squats are actually stronger. So for squats, absolute number is the same. I'm matching what I did in university when I was like 23, 24 years old. Bench press, I'm nowhere near. Like from an absolute number, the weight is like half or whatever. But because like I'm half the person too, on a pound per pound basis, I'm actually just as strong, if not stronger, now in my late 40s than I was in my 20s when I'm supposedly was in my prime, even though I was obese and sick. So I just want you all to know, man or woman, doesn't matter. You can always start and you can always put on lean muscle mass and get stronger. And I've hammered it home a million times, podcast interviews, my blog, email, blog posts, social media posts, whatever. You can put on lean muscle mass, and lean muscle mass is the currency for longevity and vitality as you age. So I just wanted to come back to that. So fast forward to current time, I'm like, what is the experiment that I can run now? So I decided, and this coming July, so shortly after this episode's released, or just for context, July of 2025, our family, including my parents and my sister and everything, we are going to Europe to celebrate my parents' 50th wedding anniversary. So we're going to Austria, where my mom is from. We're going to do a little tour of Italy, mini, couple days in Italy. We're not really hitting it. Mostly, we're going to spend most of our time in Austria. So we're going to be gone for about 3 weeks. And I'm not going to have access to a gym. None of the hotels or Airbnbs can have a gym there. So I mean, yes, I'll have to figure out a way to train. And I'm not going to have my, I'll bring my little thing of supplements, but I can't bring everything. So I'll be, sort of just the basics. Certainly not going to be carrying around protein powder, which I don't take anyway, but like not going to be taking my collagen and not going to be carrying my amino acid, like, so just the basics, the very like basics. That's all I'm going to travel with for supplements. And I'm going to be out of routine and be on the go all the time. So there'll be a lot of movement happening, but I'm not going to be like, consciously doing like cardio, zone 2 cardio that I do, every day. Not gonna be strength training. Try and figure out, what I can do for body weight, like push-ups, air squats, whatever I can figure out, in the context of like a very heavy travel schedule. Like we're going to be doing museums and this and that, like we're seeing it all, right? We're doing the touristy thing during this trip. As well as best, like I can't control the food, right? We're gonna be eating out like almost exclusively. Me having baguettes in Paris and whatever. Again, we're in Austria, so I'll be having like Bavarian beer and Wiener Schnitzel, and we'll be doing a lot of celebrations. Again, it's my parents' 50th wedding anniversary, wine, all this. So totally, food's gonna be out of whack. So with the context of that 3-week period during July here, during the summer, I have actually challenged myself starting like today, actually starting a couple days ago at the time of this recording, till the end of summer, sometime, September or something. I'm going to go back and do another body impedance test. And I've challenged myself to actually improve my body comp, to bring fat mass down a little bit and actually put on some more lean muscle mass. If I can put on another 5 pounds lean muscle, and maybe drop a couple pounds of fat, or somewhere in that ratio, let's call it 5, 6, 7 pounds, whatever that looks like, that'd be fantastic in this short, let's call it 4-month period here. So how do I plan to do that? Basically, I'm not going to give it all away because I want to like give you the afterwards, but essentially what I'm going to do, there's going to be some minor tweaks to nutrition, some minor changes to the diet that I'm planning to implement and that I've just started to put in. And there's going to be a different approach to my training, to strength training. I'm literally going to flip things around and see how effective that is. It's an experiment. I might fail. It might not work. I think it will though, but we'll see. And I'll report on that later. But that is my big sort of summer body comp challenge to myself. And, I wanted to give you all that backstory to let you know, one, the history and how I got to this point and what I'm challenging myself with now go forward. And my good friends, if you've been following me, they're a big sponsor of my one-day event. My good friends at Upgrade Labs here in Calgary. Obviously, there's Upgrade Labs all over North America, but the one here in Calgary, where I live, they'll be part of my journey, and they'll be supporting me through, not only the initial test we just did a couple days ago, but the test we'll do at the end as well. So I want to give them a good shout out there, Dean and Janet and the crew over there. And definitely don't forget to check out today's show sponsor, which is Kion Aminos, which is the amino brand I use. Anyway, I'll talk enough about that. I got a little blurb, little video at the end of this video, or audio if you're listening audio only. And so I'm happy to report back what it is. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, if you're someone who struggled with your weight, hey, I've lived through it. I've been through it all. I've been morbidly obese. I've been a little too lean that I actually couldn't maintain. It was too hard to maintain. Actually, I actually got down to, I said that weight that I was like when I was, in grade 8, grade 9, and around 170. I actually got down to about 165, and I looked pretty good. Like it's totally see ab definition and everything, but it was actually a little too lean for me to maintain properly. So, again, about 170. Somewhere in that zone. 75 is a good place for me. And again, I'm trying to maybe add a couple pounds, but lean muscle mass, not fat, during this experiment. So again, if you've struggled with anything, how to train, how to strength train, especially if you're someone in your 40s, mid 40s, late 40s, 50s, etc. I've been there, I've done that. Reach out, reply, reach out to me on social. send me an email, what have you. All the information, all the links will be in the show notes. So I'm looking forward to this challenge. I'm looking forward to report back to all of you. So again, I want to thank you for watching the Deepak Saini Show. Remember, exceptional results for the exceptional you. Until next time. Kion amino acids, essential amino acids, actually all Kion products, but of the products that I use, their essential amino acids are the ones I love the most. Why? Because they actually change their formula when new research comes out. I think they've changed the formula twice now. I use this every day, certainly days I'm working out, just to get those essential amino acids. Again, it's not necessarily about protein. You obviously need the protein, but the protein really breaks down into amino acids, and you need the essential amino acids, not branch chain. Those are garbage. You need essential amino acids, and Kion is my favorite brand, and they are a sponsor of today's show.
Podcast produced by the Minted Green Company